Magic shows up when there's alignment. When you're clear and when you're in alignment with your highest good, things show up magically and it's synchronistic.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bola Abimbola, frequency alchemist, life coach, and energy practitioner. Daily Soul Bytes is where we invite guest authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs from the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership, sharing their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest all the way from the United States, Ronnie Ann Ryan. Welcome to the show, Ronnie.
Thank you, Bola. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Nice to have you. Let me read your bio before we start, Ronnie. Ronnie is an intuitive guide and wise woman and offers a fresh, engaging approach to spirituality and personal growth. With over 30 years of spiritual development experience, Ronnie specializes in blending intuition, humor, and actionable suggestions to help people shift from struggle to ease and manifest positive change. That is so powerful. That is the empowered life. This is wonderful. How did you get to this place, Ronnie? Tell us a bit about your journey, how you came to become so passionate about using intuition to really manifest that empowered lifestyle and empowered being, in fact. How did you come to this place?
I worked really hard at developing my intuition. I wanted to be able to count on it and, to make sure I was getting answers that were from my highest good and that kind of thing. So I took a lot of classes and I practiced and I practiced and I made it, a lifestyle, really. That's what I was working on. So I really worked to learn to trust myself because more than anything, you have to be able to count on yourself. When I would hear things, it made sense to follow through. Why didn't I follow through? But sometimes I didn't believe it, or I thought it was just my fear talking, or all the things we do and say and convince ourselves and talk ourselves out of. So I spent a lot of time learning how to trust myself.
Are you looking for AAA grade jewelry or gemstones? Utter Spirit are those we will recommend. They actually do really wonderful jewelry. They have gifted me really nice lapis lazuli, which is really good for connecting with universal wisdom. And also this shungite beads, which come from Russia, and they're really rare because a lot of the times you get shungite beads which affect your skin, and these beads have been really nice. My son also loves them, and Utter Spirit, they give back to nature as well. So that is really nice that they are contributing to the environment, and they also send this intention cards. They're quite nice. This shungite card says, I cleanse myself from harmful energies. And the lapis lazuli card says, I am connected to the infinite wisdom of the universe. So there's information that goes with it, as well as them, producing really good quality jewelry. So I will recommend to connect with Utter Spirit. And the code will be going with this video. So check them out. I love the fact that your intuition kept growing through your experiences. And this is the thing, it's about practice, coming to allow ourselves to be curious about something and then practicing it, and just alignment, continuous alignment based on how we are led. So thank you for that, because you continue to align, and that created stepping stones to this empowered place that you are today. Thank you so much for sharing. When you talk about conversation on that inner plane, what does that mean?
Okay. One of my favorite topics for sure. Thank you for asking. So, conversations are on the inner plane. What I really mean by that is it's just a conversation you're having intuitively. And you can have that with anyone, alive, dead, fictional, uh, historical, or anything, because you can talk to plants and animals and the elements. So that's what I mean by conversations on the inner plane. And I've had a lot of surprising conversations. You know, at one point, my green beans in the garden were not growing right. They had lots and lots of flowers, but there were no beans. And I'm like, this isn't right. What's going on? So I stood in front of the beans and I didn't know how to do it and just do it, you know? And so I said, what's going on? Something's happening. You have all these beautiful flowers, but there's no fruit. Tell me what you need. Is there something you need that I can help you with? And so all I heard was ashes. I'm like, you need ashes? So I'm like, okay. So I go in and I look it up on the internet. Why would a plant need ashes? And it said if there was too much fertilizer in the ground and there was too much nitrogen, then the ashes will help rebalance the chemistry. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I did put some ash in there, and before you know it, green beans started coming out. And I was like, that's amazing. So that's a conversation on the inner plane because I definitely did not hear that aloud. I heard it in my head. So that's what I mean by conversations on the inner plane. And sometimes it really boils down to what are you passionate about? Passionate about? Where do you have a lot of energy? What are you focused on? And what will make you smile and feel uplifted? And go with that and try it because I've had a lot of good experiences. And one other experience is if you're having trouble getting along with somebody that you really want to get along with, but somehow you don't feel like you can have the conversation, that's a great time to use a conversation on the inner plane. And you can, one of the easiest ways is to picture like a figure eight on the floor in blue, because blue is for communication, big enough that you can sit in one piece of the eight and the other person can sit in the other piece. So you both have your own space, but you're connected through that blue light of communication. And then you can ask a question. You can say whatever it is that you need to express. And this has been amazing in some of my relationships to have these inner conversations that you feel like you just can't get those words out on a person to person, face to face basis. And watch the changes that come out of that, even though you never spoke to them directly. It's quite powerful.
I totally agree with you. There is such a power within us, and this is life force. Sometimes I do remind my clients that the same life force that we see in the plants, we see in in on the waves, in the clouds, they all have life. Plants have life, they grow, the waves are moving. There's no battery in the waves, there's no battery in the clouds. That same life force that is in the clouds, in the waves, in the plants is within us. And it's intelligence. It is a knowing. And I love the way you call it a conversation on the inner plane, because that allows us to tap into that wisdom,
Yeah.
allows us to tap into that infinite knowledge and data that allows us to implement and develop and manifest our own lives, our own realities in a much more expanded way. So, yes, I totally agree with you about having that conversation on the inner plane. Could you tell us a bit about your work? Because I know you tend to promote more group work rather than the the one to one. I have a one to one bespoke container, and There's no right or wrong. It's about difference and understanding what matches us. But it's really about us understanding what resonates with us in the present. What is really fulfilling for you about group work, and how it comes to expand and really align with your work a lot more.
So I certainly will do one-on-one work with people. Absolutely, I do. The reason why I favor group work is because I've done a lot of group work and I've experienced what happens and how much your energy is amplified when you do group work. So, what happens is when you're alone, you're the power of one. When you're with three, you're the power of nine. It's exponential. So when you're with 10, you're at the power of 100. When I was learning how, I started by a year-long class with a group of 6 women and a teacher doing past life work, where we looked at our own past lives. There was no hypnosis, it was just intuitive. It was an amazing experience because there was so much confirmation in addition. When you work in a group, so let's say we would have one woman who asked a question, but all 6 of us, plus the teacher, would focus on whatever the question was. And then we would share whatever answers. Sometimes we had words, sometimes we had visions, sometimes we just had feelings or knowing. It varied depending on the woman and the time. But what we got for answers were often aligned or dovetail in some way that always surprised us, that it was so confirming that no, you're on the right track, your intuition's working good. Look, she got something similar and she got something similar, and even if the vision or the look of it was different, the meaning ended up being the same. So that was a tremendous experience. So I have a lot of firsthand experience with seeing how amplified the energy gets when you work in a group. And so I think it progresses you faster than you could ever do on your own.
There is an expansion that happens in the group. You do have, sometimes one person singing and it's beautiful when you just have a solo artist singing. And then you have the choir, which has its own kind of blend and harmony. So there is some lot of synchronicity that happens, and a lot of expanded reflections that really, much more insights are shared and had, in a group. So I definitely do agree with that. But I do want to emphasize that there is no right or wrong.
Oh, yes, I agree.
And there are times when you just need that one-on-one
Oh,
bespoke,
sure.
and there are times when you do need to have that group. And I do have a group program as well that I run for caregivers who want to become caregiver resilience practitioners.
Mm.
And that is a group program. So it does depend, but I love that you're doing that. I also love that you work with Akashic records, because I do as well. And
Ah,
there's something about the precision of the messages that we give, and the kind of dots that it kind of connects for those we work for, or we work with. So I would love to know, in terms of the Akashic records, how you work with it and why you feel it is so important.
it happens to be where I got the deepest learning and where I developed my intuition. Because what I realized was if I can look backwards, I can look at the present and I can look forward because it's all the same skill set. So the for me, the Akashic is a place to go to find history. Now, a lot of people today use the Akashic records for the present and the future. When I do Akashic record work, I'm looking for an understanding of something that's happening in your life right now that you don't understand or you can't figure out or you don't see the benefit, that kind of thing. So I go and look in the records and I open up to hear what is the root cause? Where did this start? What do you need to know to help you heal this or bring people together or whatever is your objective? I'll tell you a story. I had a client who was not yet divorced, but she was not living with her husband. And they fought a lot. It wasn't physical, but it was really bad verbal arguments, screaming and everything. So when she had been living in the house, they had separate rooms, and she would fill her bed. She had a queen size bed, but she would fill, except for this little space where she slept. She didn't want him in there. So she filled it with all these books and all these things as like protection. But anyway, she said she really wanted to understand. She wanted to get back in the house. She wanted to go back with him. And what could she do to make that happen? And so I went to the records to look to see what's going on with these two. Well, they had had lifetimes of battling, lifetimes. They didn't necessarily fight each other. They just wanted to fight. And so they got in on the Crusades and and ancient Rome, and they were all over the place, all over the world, fighting with a sword. They loved to fight. And so I was telling her about that, and she said, "That's so funny you say that because my husband and I love to watch movies with sword fighting," which totally cracked me up. Talk about confirmation. So anyway, I was trying to explain to her that I saw a contract that they had, and the contract, she wanted him to close the door, or she wanted to get back together. She was leaving it up to him. And I said, the contract is not that way. The contract is that if you want to fight, he's going to fight with you. But if you want to stop, you are the one that has to stop. He's never going to stop. So don't think whatever you do, it's going to change him into not fighting with you, because he's here to help you learn this lesson because you wanted to learn to stop fighting. So don't look at him to clear this up, because that's not going to happen. You have to, which is kind of advice for almost anything. But sometimes you think, well, if he calms down, then I could. And you really have to take it on yourself. What do I want with what and how things are right now? Not some maybe future.
And I love the way you were able to get her to a place of really clarifying what she really wanted. Because our intentions are so important and they create our reality. And this is where magic comes in, when
Yeah.
we're talking about magic and how, sometimes we think magic has to be something that is unexpected or nothing to do with us, and somebody's doing something to us. But I have come to see magic as something that we actually create for our own self. How do
Mm.
you see magic and how do you work with it?
I think magic shows up when there's alignment. When you're clear and when you're in alignment with your highest good, I think things show up magically and it's synchronistic. So I'll give you the silliest example. My husband and I went for a ride last week. And before we got in the car, he had showed me these big nuts. And we've seen the shells in our yard, but we've never seen them whole and we've never seen the tree. And so they're like a small tennis ball and they're light green like a tennis ball. We're like, what is this? So he looked it up and he found out it's a black walnut. And then he found the tree. Okay, so we get in the car, and this has nothing to do with where we're going or anything, but we go to another town that's maybe 5 or 6 towns away, and they have a beautiful town green, and things are decorated for fall, and it's lovely. And we go to a sandwich shop, and we come out, and right there near where all the pumpkins and the hay and the flowers are decorating the sidewalk, we see one of those nuts, like that little green tennis ball. They're hard. They're so hard. The squirrels love them. So we're like, look at that. There must be a tree around here. And then we see it across the street. Okay, so then we're ready to leave and we drive. And then I thought, I want you to drive, honey. So I pull into a school parking lot just because it was there. And I parked in a space that was loaded. It was loaded. There were so many of those nuts on the ground in the parking lot. I drove right there and I just totally cracked up because that's the magic of abundance happening. I mean, it wasn't like, money. I didn't win the lottery or anything like that, but I did get a kick out of how, he was on the hunt for what is this nut about? And then we just kept seeing them everywhere. And then I drove into this place where they were everywhere. To me, That was really magical. And one other very short one was my girlfriend and we've been working together for 30 years intuitively, and we help each other with what's going on in our lives and how do we change things. And so one time we had a particularly amazing session where we got just fabulous answers. They were really resonating with us. And we always went, it was outside the library, and the library was near a river, and it was a beautiful setting. It was a beautiful day. And as we're walking back, I look down at the ground and I see a four-leaf clover. Now, it's a walkway full of clover. Why did I look down at that minute and see that four-leaf clover? Come on. So I took that as a sign that we were on the right path. We were on the right track, because it's not every day you see a four-leaf clover. And I don't even know how I saw it, but I just must have been nudged to look down, and there it was. It just stuck out like, but it was really just in a field of clover. But to me, that was a sign. So that's how I look at things.
When I was doing a reading for someone, I saw a clover. There was a woman sitting on a bench in a garden, and I said to him, I can see a woman, with, in this garden with a clover leaf in her hand. And he goes, that's my grandmother. And that's interesting because our our sense of magic is something that is already within us. Life, day to day, is already magical. But what we're now doing is making it much more conscious. We are actually understanding how the things that we hold in our minds, the intentions that this is our intentions, the intentions that we hold, and the way we come to have a relationship with that external world allows us to really observe the synchronicities much more consciously. And then we say, oh, that's magic, but it's happening all the time. We're being guided, we're being supported by a number of different beings, including I believe, our ancestors, and our own higher self, guiding us into these synchronicities according to our soul's purpose, according to the themes we've come to explore in this particular lifetime. So I totally believe in magic, and it's something that as spiritual entrepreneurs, we do tend to use a lot of it to support and guide those who work with us. I'd love you to tell us, Ronnie, in your perspective, has the way we learn and grow changed from previously? Because I know you've been in this for over 30 years. From when you started, how did you see or perceive learning, how we tend to expand, how we tend to go from one step to another compared to this present time?
Okay. Well, I think things have changed a lot. And when I started working on stuff, let's say, heavily in the 90s, I took a lot of classes, and I didn't always have success with doing whatever. Like I took psychometry and all kinds of everything you can imagine, trying to learn how to use my intuition. But then once I got going late in the 90s, I started teaching classes at like adult education and community college and stuff. And so I would teach intuition there, and people would just get it. They would just, get it like they would just get it like that. And I think it's even faster now. So I'm not sure what took me so long. I think I had vowed to not do this work, but here I am doing it anyway because I really worked hard. So I think I had barriers to get through for whatever reason that I set up for myself. But I find today that, people are so much more open, and people, there's so many more awakenings, and this is how we were meant to be, to use our faculties beyond the five senses, to know our own inner truth, to work with the flow of the earth, and be aligned with the elements and the seasons. This is ancient wisdom and knowledge. And it's still coming forth because it needs to be here now to help the population and to bring light. And one of the most exceptional and exciting things that I've heard recently, I don't know if you've ever heard of Cryon, channeled by Lee Carroll, but he's very positive. I love the positive. And he said, the decision has been made. And I'm like, really? The decision has been made, and we've gone for the light. And there is so much light now. We have all the light we need to make all the changes we want. And that just thrills me to no end, honestly. It just thrills me because most of the stuff you hear is it's so dark and we live in difficult times and things are crumbling. And I don't want that. I don't want to hear that. Maybe I'm a child. I don't know. But to me, that's not what I see. You can look for that and you can find that, but that doesn't mean that's all there is. So I have a group of women and we go into the Akashic records to ask questions. And we were asking about suffering on the planet. What's happening with the suffering? And we got just amazing answers. And one was, if you're worried about everybody suffering, then you're not tending to yourself. So tend to yourself, work on yourself, make yourself happy. Because when you do that, you help everyone because of the ripple effect. When you lift your vibration, just you change the world. Just you. So worrying about everybody doesn't help. But working on yourself and lifting your vibration and finding things that make you happy, that changes the world. The second thing was that there's so much light on the planet that even though we can't see it, it's blinding. That's how much light there is on the planet. And you can see how happy this makes me. It fills me with joy. I just love that. And I really want people to feel that because I know that things aren't easy right now in your country, in my country, throughout Europe, throughout the world, in Africa. There's things going on everywhere, and in Asia and Russia, there's just problems everywhere. I think we're more aware of that because of how fast the news goes around in social media. I think we're a lot more aware than we ever were of what's going on. But there's so much light. Think about what you want to focus on because you could focus on the darkness. That's an option. And I'm not saying be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand, but you do get to choose what you want to spend your time on. This is me. I guess I should get off my soapbox, but I would just love for people to see the possibilities and to feel the amount of light because that's why I work for the joy. I work through the positive. I want to lighten the load where I can with my clients in my groups. I just want to bring a lightness of being because change can happen so much faster when you're lighter. And I've learned that the hard way.
I love that. I love that, Ronnie. And I totally agree with you. Spiritual awakening is one thing, which is where we are becoming more aware of that higher self, that spirit self. We wake up to it. We realize that there is something bigger than us that is guiding us. Now, that's different from growth, actually growing, because you can be spiritual awakened, but you're not really growing in that way. You're learning in the way you're thinking. The thinking is still being driven by that physical reality. And this is why I wrote Daily Soul Bites. I actually channeled it in 2020. And Daily Soul Bites talks about the different perspectives within us, the perspectives that are around fear and survival, the lower frequency perspectives, and the higher perspectives, which are usually around love and courage and empowerment. And how at any point in time, we always have these perspectives within us. And it's about what we choose, what we become aware of, what we align to. And whatever we align to, we will expand. If we continue to align to the lower frequency, it never ends. It is endless. And if we continue to align to the higher frequencies of light, that as well is endless. It is infinite. And I loved it when you said, The light is blinding. It is so beautiful. This is what is changing now. There are a lot more of us choosing to align, choosing to become much more conscious. So that is totally resonating with me. How do you work with your clients, Ronnie? I know you've mentioned your Akashic records. I know you've also mentioned working in groups and encouraging them to really own their intuitive powers. Tell us a bit about the different ways you work, and if there is anything coming up right now.
Okay, great. So I also work one on one. Sometimes I do intuitive readings or past life readings or a combination. And, whatever people are having problems with, we will look for solutions. My answers are usually very practical and grounded rather than pie in the sky because I want people coming away with having something they can focus on, they can take action on, they can think about whatever it is that they need. I want to provide something that's grounded and practical and yet still from spirit. And really looking at what's for their highest good. That's my goal. So I also do bioenergetic clearing. And this is relatively new in my toolbox. It's about 3 years old that 3 years I've been doing this work. And I just love doing this because, as you know, energetically, sometimes we hold all kinds of stuff, vibrations, emotions, baggage, whatever you want to call it. And there's a variety within our energetic bodies or our physical bodies or our emotional bodies, all the different bodies that we have. And it gets stuck there because we don't know how to release it or let it go or whatever. And there's a way to let it go. There's a way to release it and remove it and get to the root cause. And that's what I do. And I use a pendulum and charts. And it's amazing because the client does not have to relive any trauma to have that be released. I have a group coming up, but I don't have the timing or anything done. And it's called the Inner Wisdom Lab. And so it's going to be a group where we practice connecting with your inner wisdom, connecting with your intuition to help you move forward in your life, make decisions, understand yourself, and that kind of thing. But I also have a free gift for your listeners, one of my favorite tools, which is how to ask the universe for a sign and get an answer in 24 hours. This is how I've made some very big decisions in my life. All the instructions are in there and it's free. It's a 30-minute audio. But my favorite version of that is I could not decide about the man I married. He there he was just a lovely person. I really liked him. I really loved him, but he wasn't expressing. He wasn't telling me he loved me. And I was already 40 something. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to wait a year. I'm not, I can't do this. And so I thought, I have to move on. And then I thought, I don't have to move on. I can ask for a sign. Let me ask for a sign before I wreck this in case I'm wrecking something. So that's what I did. So I asked, I had to travel for 2 weeks. So I asked to see a bluebird in 2 weeks. Never do that. 24 hours is all you need. I made myself mental with this 2 weeks nonsense. Don't do it. Anyway, so I wanted to see a bluebird if I should stay with him and give him a little more time. So on the last day of my 2 weeks, I'm in my parents' home in Florida, and out the back window, I see this giant gray bird that's 3 feet tall. I'd never seen anything like that. I'm like, Dad, what is that bird? Oh, he says, that's a blue heron. I was like, oh, a blue heron. It didn't look blue, but that was its name. And so I decided to give the man I married more time to become the man I married. And it worked out. And we've been together 27 years, married 25. So, um, It was such a good decision. I'm really glad I didn't walk away. But sometimes you just can't take it anymore. There's no clear choice. You don't know what to do. So ask the universe for a sign.
Can you tell us your website again, Ronnie?
Yes. Intuitiveedge.biz.
Beautiful.
BIZ. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ronnie. Honestly, I have enjoyed this conversation. It's really about intuition and how we can really come to work with those who can enable us, join with us to manifest from our own intuitive space. Intention is something we create with. It can be conscious or subconscious. We cannot create without intention, but it's about making it conscious. And I love the way you are working with your clients, Ronnie, to really help them to hold intentions without doubt, because the intentions without doubt have no choice but to come to pass. And when you have somebody who can infuse you with that confidence, who can infuse you with that power, as opposed to feeling that the world happens to you and things happen to
Mm-hmm.
you, having somebody who has that conviction to enable you to stand in your own power is really powerful, is really wonderful. So thank you for the work you're doing. Do you have any final words for us today, Ronnie, before we go?
I would just love people to find something to smile about every day. Because why not? Why not laugh and smile and find a way to enjoy yourself? There's plenty of time to deal with the crud in life. Make some time to experience the joy.
Yes, I do agree. Make lots and lots of time to experience the joy. That is so true. Thank you for joining us today again,
Thank
Ronnie.
you. Thank you so much.
And I would like to thank our audience for joining us today and to ask you to connect with Ronnie if you do want to develop that intuition and to really come to understand that empowered being that we all truly are. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bytes Show. Bye bye.